I started my video series on Iranian art as a sort of quiet protest over the US-led bombing of Iran last summer, and now it seems that the US and Israel have decided to pick up where they left off. I understand that a lot of Iranians actually support the idea of a military action that might bring about the fall of the current regime in Iran. A lot of Iranians, both inside and outside of Iran, hate the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I understand that. Some of them are old enough to remember back to the time before the Iranian Revolution of 1979, when the theocratic government of the Ayatollah toppled the previous more secular government of the Shah. Other Iranians have lived through decades of the brutal repression under the current government, and so I totally understand why they might feel like celebrating at the chance of seeing that government toppled. However, for my own part, I remain highly skeptical of the US-led regime change war model. I think the outcomes of these wars speak for themselves. I love my country. I love the United States of America. I love our people. I love our land. I love the ideals our country was founded upon. But I think our success in both World War I and World War II made us drunk on glory. And ever since then, in some sense, we have been chasing that sensation, the sensation of being glorious world liberators. And in my opinion, that has proven to be a very vain pursuit and a very destructive one. This will be the last time I speak about politics on this channel for a long time. I think you deserve to have some entertainment that is not woven through and through with a political agenda. Whether you support a regime change in Iran or not, and whether you support a foreign military intervention to bring that about or not, I don't think your position on current events should interfere with your ability to enjoy the rest of this video series I'm making about the history of Iranian art. It will deal mostly with ancient and medieval history, and so unless you've got some real hot button issues related to the Sassanids versus the Parthians or the Medes versus the Persians, unless you get really triggered every time someone mentions the Akkadian conquest of the Elamites, I think you'll be all right. But for this video, just this one video, I do want to speak my mind on the current events surrounding the US-Israeli attack on Iran. So if my opinion irritates you, just stop watching. I know you don't need any more irritation in your life, and in general, I hope to offer you the opposite. I hope that in general, most of the time, my channel is a place where you can come for something relaxing, beautiful, and uplifting. I understand that the issue of contemporary Iran is complex. I don't expect everyone to arrive at the same point of view on it, let alone my point of view. I'm not saying my point of view is the right one, I'm just explaining how and why I arrive at it. Most of what I'm going to discuss in the rest of this video is related to the calculus of regime change wars and the theoretical good they might do weighted against the reality of civilian casualties. I could say a lot more about the abysmal track record of our regime change wars, but other people have said these things already and have said them more persuasively than I could. I think the track record shows that on the whole, they have almost always done more harm than good. So I'm against them on principle. A big part of why I am against these regime change wars has to do with the nature of modern warfare. I've never been okay with civilian casualties or that other horrible dehumanizing term, collateral damage. And you can say that I'm just being naive and I don't understand the realities of modern warfare, and it's true that I despise modern warfare, but I think I understand it just fine. Modern warfare means men dropping bombs and missiles on schoolgirls while they sit hundreds or thousands of miles away operating joysticks as if they were playing video games. To me, this is far more barbaric than men cutting each other to pieces on a field. In the Battle of Waterloo, which took place in 1815, an estimated 47 to 50,000 men died on the battlefield. Not a single civilian casualty is reported from that battle. Not a single schoolgirl, woman, or even a non-combatant man is reported as unintentional collateral damage from that awful, bloody conflict. Every man who died that day was a man who chose to fight. To me, that is an honorable way to conduct a war. I know it isn't possible anymore. I know technology has made that sort of scenario seem impossible now, but we spend a lot of time trying to think up solutions to seemingly impossible challenges. I don't know why we would try to solve interstellar space travel before we tried to solve the problem of civilian casualties in modern warfare. In reality, anyone who seriously studies the constraints of both problems will know that the latter is a far more realistic goal than the former. In the meantime, I'll just say I am against the destruction of Iranian lives, whether by its own government or by ours. I am against the destruction of Iranian cities and the rich cultural heritage of art, architecture, and archaeological sites that I hope this video series will be able to illustrate. Thousands of years of Iranian civilization have furnished the world with numerous fascinating artworks and artifacts. I am profoundly sad to think of this heritage being destroyed by bombs and the general destructive nature of modern warfare. But that thought immediately frames another question. To a father, what are all the riches in the world compared to the life of his child? Though he were a passionate collector of art, he would burn every painting that has ever existed if it meant protecting the life of his little daughter. Of course, I am alluding to the reports that a missile struck a school and killed a large number of elementary school girls on February 28th. I believe the name of the school was, forgive me for mispronouncing this, Shajareh Tayyebeh Girls Elementary School. And it was struck by a missile in an attack on the city of Minab in southern Iran, killing more than 100 girls between the age of 7 and 12, according to CBS and The Independent. Now, it used to be that every time you would hear a report like this, you might think, oh, well, let's not jump to conclusions, fog of war and all that. We don't want to amplify this story if it has not been verified. It could just be enemy propaganda after all. If you could count how many times that line of reasoning was given during the Israeli bombardment of Gaza over the last few years, and then one day we just see that the entire city has been reduced to rubble, well, no one wonders anymore if the stories of schools and hospitals being bombed were true. It's quite obvious that schools and hospitals were bombed because just about everything in Gaza was bombed. So I don't see so many people trying to pretend that this news story about the Shajareh Tayyebeh girls' school is fake. It seems like Western news outlets have accepted it as a fact that the school was bombed and that many girls were killed. The conversations are more about, is this level of collateral damage acceptable or not? To me, this is a very tired conversation. It's a conversation I've been having with people since the 2003 lead up to the invasion of Iraq. For a quarter of a century, we've been intervening in the Middle East. I mean, I know we've been intervening longer than that. It's just that that's the period of time that I've been aware of it as an adult. And, specifically these regime change wars, we've been doing them for a quarter of a century, and all that time, I've had to listen to people make up excuses for why little girls need to have bombs dropped on them. And I'm sick of it. I mean, to say that I'm sick of it is an understatement. When I heard the news that the girls' school had been bombed, it made me think immediately of a little girl named Ahmadi. Ayat was 2 years old when she was killed by a drone strike on August 29th, 2021. I can't believe it's been almost 5 years now. I remember her picture from the news. An adorable little girl in her photo, very happy in her photo because she's eating ice cream. She was killed by a bomb that wiped out almost an entire family. I bet her father wishes he had died that day. I would. I would rather not have to live even a single second knowing that my little child was killed. I bet her father wishes he had been killed in that same drone strike that killed his little daughter Ayat, as well as his 3-year-old son Benjamin, and his 9-year-old son Armin, and his 3-year-old niece Malika, as well as his own brother Zamari, and Zamari's own 3 sons. I really hate this story. Anyone would. Who wouldn't hate this story? It's one of the most tragic things you can imagine. But the circumstances surrounding this incident somehow make it even worse. The fact is that this is in some sense a summary of the entire U.S. legacy after 20 years in Afghanistan. The drone strike that wiped out the Ahmadi family occurred just as we were pulling out of Afghanistan. It was one of the last things we did there. The strike was ordered because Zamari was mistakenly identified by U.S. intelligence as an ISIS-K operative. In reality, Zamari was just about the farthest thing imaginable from a militant or terrorist. Zamari Ahmadi was employed as an electrical technical engineer by an NGO called Nutrition and Educational International, NEI. It's a California-based 501c3 humanitarian nonprofit funded in 2003. It's headquartered in Pasadena. The stated purpose of NEI is to eradicate malnutrition in Afghanistan, particularly among women and children, through food aid, farming initiatives, and community support programs. Zamari was targeted as he returned home from a day spent bringing poor people water and resources. The bomb fell just as his children were running up to greet him. To this day, as far as I can tell, no one has ever been held accountable for the failure in U.S. intelligence that led to this horrific tragedy. So you can say anything you want. You can say that we went into Afghanistan for good reasons. They were, after all, harboring Osama bin Laden, and that's true. You can say that the Taliban was evil. I certainly have no love for the Taliban. They destroyed ancient artworks and were awful on the scoreboard of women's rights. But whatever you say, you have to admit that we went in, caused a lot of damage for 20 years, and then just handed the place back to the Taliban, leaving them $7 billion worth of our own military equipment as a parting gift. That is the U.S. legacy in Afghanistan. Now, Iran has many similarities and many differences when compared to Afghanistan, but in the end, the underlying dynamics of a U.S. intervention in Iran involve a lot of the same calculations. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope so. I hope in 10 years' time, there will be a flourishing Iranian society with a rich, healthy economy and a stable government that allows for greater individual freedom. But you have to forgive me if I don't believe that we can bomb our way into that future. I don't know why, but this photo of Ayat Zamari is burned into my memory. Maybe because my own little girl loves ice cream, but then what 2-year-old girl doesn't love ice cream? Somehow Ayat became a symbol in my mind for every child, even every adult, every non-combatant civilian killed over the last 25 years of U.S. foreign intervention. Every person who never chose to go to war, who never chose to pick up a weapon or fight, but got blown to pieces anyway because they happened to be in the way of a military goal. It made me so mad. It made me mad also how quickly it was swept under the rug and forgotten about. For whatever weird reason, this little girl's picture was stuck in my mind, and so to me, she felt real. I couldn't accept that her existence could be made to seem meaningless, that she could be treated like just another name on the long list of civilian casualties. That is how her father, Romal Ahmadi, feels still today. Only he feels it a million times stronger than me. I go months without thinking of Ayat or seeing her picture in my mind. I imagine that for Romal, a day never passes where he doesn't see her in his mind's eye, happy as she was on that day when he photographed her eating ice cream. So that's it. That's all I have to say about this. I am not going to say anything more about this subject for the duration of my series on the history of Iranian art. I think I will end the series around the year 1900. There are plenty of other videos you can watch that deal with the history of Iran in the 20th century. I really have nothing to add to them. I find the 20th century rather depressing. Probably a lot of it having to do with the advent of modern warfare, which is really ramped up from World War I all the way till today. But anyway, I'm a hopeless romantic, so, for me, the 1800s, the 1700s, just everything before the 20th century is attractive, and very little is attractive after it. Maybe I'm drawn to Iran because there's something romantic in the soul of Iran as well. And anyway, I offer this series of videos to anyone who continues to dream of beauty in a world that seems to grow ever more cynical.